$1,373. Take a look at this number. This isn't a savings account. It's not an emergency fund. It's just your monthly paycheck. The number you check at 11:53 p.m., lying on a second-hand bed you bought from a marketplace listing. Now I want you to listen carefully, friends. This number is where most wealthy people started. Not with family inheritance. Not with a lucky investment. $1,373, and the moment you put the premium olive oil back on the shelf and grab the brand that fits your budget instead. I'm going to show you exactly how to build wealth. What happens between now and the point where you're sitting in a room with 4 other people, collectively controlling enough capital to reshape a mid-sized economy. And more importantly, I'll show you the 6 invisible rules that carry you from one world to another. Because it's not what it looks like. It never was. By the end of this video, you'll understand 6 things that most people, including high earners, never figure out on their own. Not because of a lack of intelligence. It's because no one explains the real psychology of wealth. Instead, they talk about saving and investing. But they never explain the psychological restructuring required at every level for the numbers to actually change. If you stay with me until Rule 4, I'll show you with complete transparency how to build wealth. Friends. And if you've been doing everything right and still feel like you're standing still, Rule 2 is the one that's going to hit you hardest. Before we start, just one quick thing. I've spent years studying the psychology of money. Not the motivational video version, the real mechanical version. How money actually moves, how much time it really costs, how it psychologically transforms you at every stage. I've had the chance to meet people from every level of this journey. And every single time, I see the same thing. As the numbers change, the rules change completely. But no one tells you that in advance. Today, we're going to talk about exactly what they don't tell you and what you need to know to build wealth. Don't leave the screen. At 0, your relationship with money is entirely emotional, and emotional decisions lead you astray. Picture this. You have $31,000 in student loans, $4,200 on a credit card. You already know what Friday's auto pay did to your balance. And every grocery trip is a quiet, irritating math problem you solve alone in your head. On Tuesday, you put $200 into your savings account, and 2 days later, you withdraw it. Not because you're irresponsible, because you're afraid. And fear doesn't turn money into opportunity, it makes it lose value. Here's what nobody tells you, friends. Your problem isn't the numbers. The problem is that money has become the emotional center of your life. You check your banking app more than your messages. You've memorized your account number. Every purchase feels like a moral event. The coffee you shouldn't have bought, the dinner you agreed to, the subscription you can't cancel just out of laziness. And that emotional weight around every financial decision is what's actually keeping you stuck. Not the amount. The shift at this level isn't earning more. It's making one decision and being able to stick to it. Working toward your goals and your family every day without breaking your stability. Moving your bank balance in the right direction. You pay $1,200 towards your smallest credit card. You take a screenshot of the 0 balance. You don't send it to anyone because no one could understand what that screenshot means. But it means everything. Because for the first time, a number moved because of your decision. That's where it begins. Not money, a decision. What I want you to do this week, Pick one number in your financial life and take action on it. Not by planning, by disciplining your decisions. Before one-liner, at zero, money isn't a tool. It's the air you breathe, and you won't realize you were suffocating until you take a real breath. Friday, your salary is a ceiling disguised as a floor. So you get a raise. Not a big one. $6,000 a year before tax, roughly $387 extra a month. And for about an afternoon, you feel rich. Then the brake pads and rotors on your car, $900. And you learn something that sounds simple but will change your life forever. Expenses expand to fill the space you give them. Always, without exception. This is where most people get stuck. They keep optimizing their salary. Better job, more income, repeat. And it works up to a point. I call that point the competence plateau. You're earning $68,000 a year. You've saved $40,000. You're doing everything right. Maxing out your retirement account, building an emergency fund, avoiding lifestyle inflation. You feel stable. Then you run the real projections. You sit down at a spreadsheet at midnight and calculate what 40 years of disciplined saving on your current income actually produces. The number is good. It's enough. And it is absolutely not what you wanted. That's when the ceiling reveals itself. So here's what you do, and I want you to hear this clearly, friends. You start something on the weekends. Not a job. Just something that brings in $400 a month. Then $900. Then $1,700. You reinvest all of it for 14 months. You eat the same lunches. You don't upgrade anything. Your net worth crosses $80,000. Then $110,000. And for the first time, you feel the gap. The gap between where you are and where your salary alone would ever take you. That gap, that's where leverage lives. This week's action. Identify a skill someone outside your job would pay you for. This week, research what that skill is worth on the open market. Just research, that's all. One-liner. Your salary tells you what you're worth to one person. The market tells you what you're worth to everyone. Below $500,000, you buy assets. Above it, assets start buying each other. Now your investments earn $3,800 in a single year without you doing anything. Let that sink in. You did nothing. You slept. You went to work. You ate lunch. And $3,800 just appeared. This isn't extraordinary, Mon. Once you built enough, it becomes ordinary. You're 32. Net worth $150,000. You have a rental property with $44,000 in equity, $61,000 in the stock market, and a side business bringing in $6,200 a month. You're still driving the same car. And you notice something strange. Talking about money at this level makes people uncomfortable. Either envy or dismissiveness. Neither works. So you stop talking about it, and you start saying no to things that used to be automatic yeses. The destination wedding you couldn't afford without liquidating something. The group trip where everyone splits evenly and you'd end up subsidizing 3 people. The business opportunity from a friend who doesn't understand cash flow. No, no, no. You feel the friction in your relationships. You feel it clearly, and you still say no. What's actually happening? You're not becoming colder. You're becoming clearer. You're learning to protect capital the way other people protect their feelings, Boyun. Because you're starting to understand that capital buys options and options buy freedom. At $300,000, your money starts developing a personality. It has preferences. It wants to go certain places and resists others. One investment earns you $22,000 in 8 months. Another loses $9,400. And you notice you don't panic over the loss. Not because $9,400 doesn't matter. It does. But now you understand, this is the cost of being in the game. You don't pull back. You reposition. That single mental shift from panic to repositioning is what separates the people who stay at $150,000 from the ones who reach $800,000. This week's action. Look at your current financial decisions. Find one that was motivated by fear of loss rather than understanding the risk. Ask yourself, am I pulling back or should I be repositioning? One-liner. People at the top aren't trying to avoid risk, they're choosing which risks are worth sitting inside. Wealth isn't the amount you've accumulated, it's what you no longer have to do. Your net worth crosses $1 million on a Tuesday. There's no ceremony. Your portfolio refreshes, and there it is. And you just sit there for a moment because you thought it would feel different. That something would change. Music, an emotion, a shift in the light. There's a quiet satisfaction. And almost immediately after, clarity arrives. At a 4% return, $1 million means $40,000 a year. That's not freedom. That's a starting point. And that moment, that exact moment, is where most people's mental model of wealth completely collapses. For years, they chased a milestone, only to arrive and find it's a checkpoint, not a destination. The $1 million arrives and the game doesn't end. It just changes shape. Now you're at $2.3 million, and for the rest of your life, money simply becomes a tool. The same way time is a resource. Your checking account doesn't come to mind. You're thinking about your financial allocation. Where is capital positioned? What's the return profile? What aren't you seeing? You take a 3-week vacation. For 5 days, you don't check work email. And I want you to understand this. What people at the lower levels can't buy isn't the vacation. It's the 5 days. When wealth truly arrives, it's not the money that's yours that feels like this. It's the time you have left. This week's action. Write down 3 things you would stop doing even if money weren't the obstacle. That list is your real wealth goal, not a number. One-liner. Wealth isn't the number in your account. It's the list of things you never have to do again. At $10 million, your reputation becomes a financial identity. It generates returns independent of your decisions. At $5 million, the texture of the game changes completely. You're no longer building, you're positioning. You're carrying capital, not working for it. This distinction sounds small, but it's enormous. You're in one deal that will return $800,000 in 18 months, and another deal that might return nothing. And you're consciously in both, because the risk of one balances the other. And the balance between them is the real trade. This sentence would have meant nothing to you 4 years ago. Now this is how you think. At $14 million, you start walking into meetings you used to only work for. Not because they invite you out of courtesy, but because your capital and your pattern recognition are useful to the people in that room. And I want to be honest here, because most finance channels skip this part. A company you've invested in restructures its workforce. 140 people. You personally know the CFO, you've had dinner with him. You don't call about the layoffs. You review the cap table. You hold. Your position increases in value. You don't feel good about it. You don't feel bad either, not for long. What you feel is distance. And that distance quietly grows as the numbers grow. No one prepares you for this. This week's action. Think of one area in your life where your reputation or credibility could generate real value. Not your resume, your actual standing in a specific room. This is an investment. Start treating it as one. One-liner. At a certain level, your reputation stops being personal. It becomes a financial identity that generates returns while you sleep. Above $50 million, money no longer measures your worth. It measures your reach. You're 61. Net worth $94 million. 3 people know the exact number. For 9 years, even since the day you took on this financial identity, you haven't worked the way you used to, but you never stopped working. Now you think in cycles, not quarters, not years. Demographic cycles, infrastructure cycles, credit cycles. You position ahead of them like a sailor reading the weather 3 days out. Sometimes you're wrong. At this level, being wrong means a position underperforms by 200 basis points and you rebalance. Your life doesn't change. A board meeting. 5 people in a room. Combined capital large enough to reshape a mid-sized economy. You speak for 4 minutes. You ask 2 questions. The room moves around those questions. You leave before lunch is served. This is power in its truest form. No display, no noise. Just a room that calibrates itself around the meetings you attend. And here's the part I need to be honest about. Friends. The part I think matters more than the numbers. At $80 million, loneliness isn't loneliness anymore. It becomes a different problem. The people in your life exist at a distance from you. The things occupying your attention, fund structures, regulatory positioning, family trust, don't translate into most conversations. You're not a different person. You're a person whose context has become untranslatable to most people who knew you before. And you give more than you ever have. Not for reputation, because at this level, money no longer measures anything meaningful about you. And giving is one of the rare things that still feels like a choice, that still means something. One-liner. Above a certain number, money stops telling you who you are. It starts showing how far your decisions reach. Right now, somewhere in this city, someone is standing in line at a checkout, quietly doing the math. They put the premium coffee back. They take the cheaper brand. They tell themselves it's the better choice. Not that they've fallen behind, just that they're acting according to what's in their pocket. And from this, I'd say the math runs underneath everything. Constantly and quietly, like the rhythm in your heart that you've stopped hearing, but that never actually stops. And I want to say this directly to that person. Maybe you're the one watching this on your phone right now. The number isn't the problem. The number is just where you are on the path. The long journey from $1,373 to wherever you want to go isn't a math problem. Based on what I've seen, it's a series of identity shifts, and every shift feels impossible from the outside and inevitable from the inside. The system doesn't ask whether you're ready for this. It doesn't ask whether the trade-off is worth it. It opens every morning and takes whoever shows up. The ones who put in the effort, who stay disciplined, who move forward without waiting for permission. Money compounds like everything else. Your clarity compounds. Your decisions compound. Your understanding of the game compounds. $1,373. The journey always starts there, and it always will. I want one thing from you this week, friends. Look at your financial life right now and identify which rule you're living in. Are you in Rule 1, where every decision is emotional? Or Rule 2, where you're optimizing your salary but haven't built any system that works alongside you? Which one is it? Write it in the comments. One sentence. Which rule and why? I read every single one, and I personally replied to the most genuine answers. If this video gave you something real, subscribe. Because next week we're diving deep into Rule 2. Specifically, how to build something on the side that actually compounds without quitting your job, without a large starting investment, and without telling anyone until it's real. That video acts directly on everything we talked about today. See you then.